Oh, yes, very good. Okay. I'm not going to put you on the spot. You might be a fan of your prime minister, you might not, but he put forward something about a year and a half, 2 years ago called the Big Society. And the Big Society has a lot to do with this whole abdicating responsibility. If you look at the UK post-World War II, a lot of the nationalization that took place in government services, etc., again, kind of forged that, well, I don't have to do that, somebody else will do that, where what we need to as a society get back to, and what is the part of Prime Minister Cameron's Big Society concept is, okay, we can't rely on others to do it anymore. We need to step up to the plate, and we need to do it ourselves. If we don't like something, if we need to make things better, to make sure that our communities, our families, and everything are the best and successful as we can be. So that's one thing that I want to, just kind of an underlying for everything that we do. And I think you already have such a strong sense of a community and family as part of the University of Notre Dame, and how can you take that, when you're out in your own communities and bring others into that way of thinking, I think would be critical. There are a lot of different players in this work. There's nonprofit organizations, there's businesses, government agencies, all working together. I mentioned the President's Summit for America's Future, and you're probably thinking, governments, but we have national service programs. Domestically, we have AmeriCorps. Internationally, we have the Peace Corps. For the most part, these have been very bipartisan initiatives, whether it be the President's Summit, where you had Republicans and Democrats together. At the last election, I went to an event in New York called Service Nation. At that time, it was Senator Obama and Senator McCain on stage, Columbia University. They suspended their campaigns for the day. They talked about the importance of the American public volunteering. They were both showing their commitment to what at the time was the Kennedy-Hatch Serve America bill, which was going to help create this volunteer generation fund that would actually help stimulate more Americans to get engaged in their communities and also increase the participation in AmeriCorps. And what we have seen the past couple of years, which just amazes me, is how volunteering and service has become a very partisan issue because Senator Hatch, when Senator Kennedy was very ill right before he died, said, let's take my name off of it. I want to dedicate this bill to my good friend and longtime colleague, Senator Kennedy. So it became the Senator Kennedy Serve America Act. It was passed with very, very few dissenters, bipartisan support from Congress. It was signed shortly after Obama took office. And then something changed a couple of years ago, which is quite disturbing to me, not only specifically in the service and volunteering field, but how service and volunteering became a partisan issue is beyond me, because when you look at all the presidents, in fact, one of my favorite stories really quick is when the first President Bush, or George 41, as we lovingly refer to him, was meeting with Bill Clinton the morning of Bill Clinton's inauguration. He said, I just have one request for you, and that's to save the points of light. And Bill Clinton said, absolutely. Bill Clinton did do that. When he went out of office for George 43, he said, I just have one request for you, and that is to save AmeriCorps. So George 43 took AmeriCorps from 50,000 youth to 75,000 youth. So again, bipartisan support, Republican president taking a program that the Democratic president did and increasing it by 50%. When George W. Bush took office, same conversation, with Obama. This is sort of this thread that goes through administrations. So however we can all work together to make volunteering and service a bipartisan issue again, I think would be beneficial for the country. There's some interesting things going on in the volunteerism and service world. And I think this is where you as volunteering leaders have a real opportunity as well. In the workplace, the corporate volunteerism world, we a lot of big companies and small companies alike do incredible work, and Habitat for Humanity and planting trees, or working with boys and girls clubs, mentoring youth. I mean, you can go on and on and on, and these are all wonderful endeavors, and they all are needed. But I also think there's an opportunity to use more of our brain power in order to help organizations be more effective. And there's a movement going on right now called Reimagining Service, and I'm on the Reimagining Service Council. And the whole focus about this is one, changing volunteering from, especially in the business setting, from the supply side to the demand side. So instead of me being a volunteer coordinator at a company and you just keep shaking your head there. I mean, we must talk after words. So I think you understand what we're talking about here. It's like, okay, I have 25 volunteers. We want to go do something with you on Saturday. And they say, well, we really don't have anything, but we can make something up for you to do. Well, it's a nice thing to do, but is it really moving the needle to, make our country a more effective place to give our youth the right start in life that's going to make them successful in life versus a drain on society and keeping them in school, which is critical these days when you look at the U.S. competitiveness around the world when our high school dropout rate is obscene. So I think, how can we use our brain power to really help these issues be more effective to meet the missions of nonprofit organizations? So Service Nation is trying to change that conversation to the demand side so that we're funneling volunteers into positions where they can make the greatest possible positive impact on what is going on. And let me talk you through 2 slides. I promise only 2 slides, but I do think that they're interesting as far as this conversation goes. This is from my friends at the Taproot Foundation, which work on encouraging pro bono service. If you look across the top, is showing what are the kind of the outcomes that are going on with each of these. So making budget, extra hands, and the infrastructure and leadership. So if you look at the far left-hand side, this is more about, this is, well, first of all, I should tell you, this is geared towards businesses, but you can apply the principles to individuals and organizations as well. So financial support. I think we all know, whether it's a university like this or nonprofits, we all need to raise money. So whether it's our personal philanthropy, tithing, etc., that's all critical. So that's over there on that side. That's a given. But let's look at the next sections, which is the giving of our time. So the extra hands, I think, is an interesting concept because, I'm not a landscaper, but I can go plant trees with an organization in Los Angeles called Tree People, or I'm not a house painter, but I can certainly go paint the rec room at a Boys and Girls Club, or as it says here, do beach cleanups, soup kitchens, etc. So this is where you don't really need to know how to do any of these things, you just show up. So that's where it is that hands-on or the extra hands. Then we move to the next part of the spectrum, and this is where general skills come in. For instance, you see junior achievement there. Well, even though my role, I'm not a teacher, but I actually was a junior achievement in-class consultant for a couple of years where I helped talk about real-world finance to high school kids. So it was using my general knowledge about life to help one of these organizations. So that's where you get in, tutoring, mentoring, etc. Then board service. I had an opportunity to have lunch with the board of your organization today. So this is farther down the spectrum. I'm sure many of you are on boards of many different organizations out there, and this is where you're utilizing oftentimes your skills, your connections, etc., to help with the governance of that particular organization. Lastly is that pro bono expertise, and this is where you go in depending on what your role is and what you can bring to the table, whether it be in finance or marketing or human resources or legal or any of the different components that are critical to helping that nonprofit organization be better. This could be done in teams. You're putting together a new strategic plan for them. It could be an organization that really grew up from the grassroots, that started with 5 employees and now is 250 employees, and you really don't have any HR structure in place, which obviously you're going to need that discipline from the size you are. So that's sort of in the pro bono side of it, in the skill base. And I think this is where we all have an opportunity to play more in this role. Not even, and also I want you to put on your hat if you're on a board of a nonprofit, you work at a nonprofit, etc., because this is also where I think there's a huge opportunity for nonprofits to better utilize volunteers and the talent that is out there in their own communities that they probably are not tapping. They're probably asking them to write a check, but they probably aren't saying, hey, we need your brain power to help us be more effective. So give that some thought. And let me show you this next slide here, which are these inverted pyramids, which will give you an idea of the importance. And I shouldn't use the word importance, because I think all volunteering is important, but let's talk about impact, and really impact on creating positive social changes. So if you look at the way this was designed, on the left hand are the program examples, on the right are the top of services. So if you look on the right, that hands-on volunteering. So this is the planting trees, the painting of the rec room, the habitat building, etc. That's the hands-on volunteering. Well, it really has lower impact on what is going on, like food sorting. Food sorting certainly is critical to a food bank, but it's not going to really change, whatever the social situation is. If you go down there, like take a look at board service, that's very high because, again, you're using your expertise in order to help this organization be more effective. So hopefully you're creating better outcomes by using fewer people. So it's just something to keep in mind. I am not saying not, to stop planting trees and painting rec room walls, because I think that's critical. There's a lot of important reasons to do it. One, it's a great opportunity to bring the clubs together in something jointly together, especially, and we call these also episodic, so it's not ongoing, where the farther you get in impact, they're ongoing. I mean, if you're on a board, if you're doing this pro bono work, it's usually involvement over time than just popping in one day. We were having a conversation at lunch about feeding the hungry and how everybody wants to feed the hungry between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Well, that's great, but today, whatever day's date is, April 20th, there are a lot of people who are hungry April 20th, but it's not top of mind for people to go do that. So it's like, how again can we change the thinking and the mindset out there? Okay. A couple of quick initiatives that are going on right now that keep in mind, if you are business owners, Billion Plus Change. It's a national campaign going on for 2 years to get businesses to commit to giving pro bono time to nonprofit organizations in their community. If you're interested, I can certainly tell you more about that afterwards. Let's move into the leadership side really quick. You might have heard of a gentleman by the name of John Gardner, who ran an organization called Independent Sector for a long time. He actually founded it, which is a national organization over nonprofit organizations. He has some interesting points on leadership, which I think are very relevant to this group here. One is think longer term. Beyond what are the day's crises, beyond the quarterly report, beyond the horizon. And I'm sure as volunteer leaders, you're probably thinking it's like, okay, are we going to have a speaker for the next meeting? Are we going to do that? Versus also stepping back for a moment and really looking at, if I have a club and it's located in Baltimore, what am I going to do, for the long term with this club? And thinking about the unit that you're heading, grasp its relationship to the larger realities, which I think is why you're here today. Is obviously you have your organization that you're running back home, but it's a part of the mothership here, so that is certainly critical. Reach and influence constituents beyond